Welcome back to Call Center Help. It's your boy Drew, and I got Mr. Call Center with us here today. And today we're going to be covering unfair practices that jobs and businesses do in 2025 and probably beyond, to be honest. And what we mean by unfair practices, we're not talking from a legality standpoint. We're not lawyers or attorneys. We're just looking at it from unfair things that jobs can do either during employment or even in the interview process that you got to be weary of. You get what I'm saying? So we're going to have Mr. Costner take the floor now. He's going to explain one or two unfair practices he's come across in his tenure.
All right. Thank you for that, Drew. Okay, so guys, sometimes companies make decisions that don't necessarily affect the people in the front trenches in a fair way. And what I mean by that is that sometimes you have people in upper management that decide that either they're going to cut people or they're going to cut programs or they're going to try to restructure the company in a certain way that a lot of us are not either used to or they don't give us enough time to prepare ourselves for it. And now I'm going to give you a little example of something that I faced years ago. I won't name the company. This is something that's common and you might encounter it in the future if you work for a call center. Now, what had happened is that the company I was working for, a lot of the VPs and upper management, they either left or they retired and new people took over. Now, these new people that took over decided, you know what, the way that the company is right now, it's not working. Let's try something new. So the teams that originally were formed and I was part of got restructured. People were being sent to different locations, and a lot of us were spread out pretty thin on taking calls. I was at the front trenches at the time. I was speaking with different clients for different things. I was working cases. Plus, I also had the responsibility to call a lot of these clients back. But because a lot of people in my team were cut or spread to different departments, I was left with more calls to take, and I still had my original responsibilities that I had to take care of. And it was really, really difficult. Now, they sprung all this at everyone at the very last moment. And once this happened, a lot of us were struggling. We didn't know. We had no level twos. People that usually went to for help weren't there anymore. They were part of a different team. And not to mention that we were not allowed to log in forms in anymore. We had to call a different department for that. I mean, things completely changed. You know, a lot of us were burnt out. We were just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Finally, one day, I couldn't take it anymore because people are still looking at what you're doing. And if they don't know your metrics are all wrong or they're not right or you're lagging behind on other parts of your job that you're supposed to be doing, they're going to let your manager know. So I had a couple of people that were, as we like to call them, snitches or rats or whatever. They had no idea what was going on. They were just looking at the numbers. So they go ahead and they tell my manager, and then my manager comes and has a talk with me. After I had a talk with my manager, I kind of explained to him what was going on. And I went and I spoke with my coworkers because they were struggling just as bad. I was like, listen, you guys, this is not fair. Okay. They're expecting us to do the same job we've been doing with extra work on top of it. It can't happen. We're not machines. We're human beings. You know what I mean? And then we get blamed for it. You know what I mean? That's bullshit. So me and about five or six other people got together. We spoke with our managers. And finally, we had a huge team meeting. It was us with our managers, along the people that were going ahead and just ratting everybody out, just being, oh, their numbers are not up to form, blah 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 blah. The way that they are. Finally, after maybe I would say 2 or 3 days, because we kept on having meetings about 2 or 3 days straight, they decided that, okay, fine, keep doing what you're doing. We're going to go ahead and try to restructure the company a little bit backwards. We're going to add some more people into the team, that sort of thing. And eventually, they kind of laid off. They understood exactly that we were doing extra work. It was completely unfair on their part to expect us to do the same thing as we were doing when all these changes happened and we were just not ready for it. I mean, who springs brand new changes on somebody one day before it happens? It's dumb, it's stupid, and it's illogical to think that you, as a person that's been doing the same job for years, finally is going to change in one day and keep the same momentum going. That was a huge experience. It was one of the big ones I ever had. And It was also the most a job changing one that I ever had because it affected everybody in my team. Everybody. That is one example of unfair practices. This is something that you are probably going to encounter. Hopefully, you don't, but you might. Now, Drew is going to take it from here and he's going to tell you about another type of unfair practice.
Exactly, man. I couldn't agree more. When they just spring stuff on you out of nowhere and they expect you to just 180 out of nowhere. And that right there, definitely annoying, definitely been through it. Here's another thing, okay? When it comes to job postings, and this is something that people don't really look at, right? They kind of just bat an eye to it. And I'll be honest, if you don't catch it, you don't catch it. When you're applying for jobs like on Indeed, LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, it doesn't really matter where. A lot of people don't go through the whole job description. Let's be real. You just kind of look at a few bullet points. You're like, yeah, I can do that. And then you apply. Get to the interview. You get the job. Okay, you think everything's great. But then down the line, they ask you, hey, you know what? Can you lift some boxes for us? Hey, can you run this money to the bank every day Thursday? Can you walk the CEO's dog every Tuesday? That right there, my friend, is called ad hoc responsibilities. Okay. A lot of job postings, and I have one on the screen for you guys to check out. They'll tell you the whole job descriptions, but towards the end, they'll say, and other ad hoc responsibilities, or they'll just put the word ad hoc responsibilities. What that means is that the company is like, hey, you're going to do everything in this job posting, plus other stuff we're going to delegate to you down the line just because, we can. The goal is they want to hire somebody that has all the qualifications of the original job posting plus some other skills that they can squeeze out of you without having to hire somebody else and pay them more. For example, if you apply for a warehouse as a logistics guy or at a warehouse that does orders, okay, you'll do your order job, but one of the ad hoc responsibilities will be every Thursday you're going to go down to the warehouse and lift boxes and stuff trucks if we're down somebody. That right there is called ad hoc responsibilities. So what you guys have to understand is this: when you read through the job description, you're going to see ad hoc. When you get to the interview, once they tell you about the job and everything like that, you can ask the interviewer, and this is key, ask the interviewer, what type of ad hoc responsibilities would I be doing aside from what I already, am applying for? And they should tell you, oh, well, you know what, maybe some tech support, you're going to do a little bit of this, or sometimes we need someone to run money to the bank. The reason why I mentioned that again is because that's something that I had my employees do from time to time. It was an ad hoc responsibility. Take the money to the bank and deposit it. That was just part of the job. So when you ask the interviewer that question, they should tell you what it is. And depending on you, and if you're okay with it, you'll say, okay, that's great. That's good to go. I can do that. You see what I'm saying? At the end of the day, you got to have your boundaries. If they give you a responsibility that's not on paper, that you're just like, I'm definitely not with it, then don't take the job because more than likely they're going to have you doing that. For example, let's say you work at a mechanic shop doing service there. You're just answering phones and setting appointments. But then they say, hey, you know how to change oil? Yeah, okay, well, then can you change some oil as well when we're short? They're not paying you extra for that. They're just using you to do that so they don't have to pay someone else to do it. You get what I'm saying? So that's when you have to have a boundary and go, hey, let's say at the interview you did ask that question. What other ad hoc responsibilities do I do? Well, some oil changes here and there. If you're okay with it, say, okay, that's fine. But if you're not okay with it, you better let them know, well, you know what? I don't really feel comfortable changing oil because a technician should be doing that, not me. And then you may or may not get the job depending if they respect it or not. But again, ad hoc responsibilities, that is something that employers use. It is unfair, but at the end of the day, it's about money, it's about profit. What can we squeeze out of this employee so we don't have to hire somebody else for that role? You get what I'm saying? Do you agree or disagree, Mr. Call Center?
Oh, I definitely agree. And I agree with you with one other thing. If you ever encounter something that you've seen that it's unfair or something that's out of place that you just can't do, you got to let them know. Because when you work for a huge company, you're always going to encounter people in power that do just not care. They do just not care about the workers. They don't. So if you encounter somebody that doesn't care or is not paying attention, or doesn't lift a finger to help the situation, then go to that your boss's boss or that boss's boss's boss. I mean, there's always a chain of command. You know what I mean? And get people to back you up too. Most likely it's not just you that's suffering and going through all this bullshit. A lot of your coworkers are. You make enough noise, they're going to either back off, they're going to let you go, or they're actually going to make a change. You know what I mean? So don't be afraid to speak up.
Put the nail in the coffin. Have a boundary. Learn what the ad hoc responsibilities are. Band together if you have to with a few employees to communicate that, hey, this is not fair. And then you take it from there. You know what I'm saying? But otherwise, guys, this is all we got for you guys today. Please like, sub, share, hit the bell. We're dropping gems weekly. And leave a comment. Let me know what you think. On to the next one.